Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. Wanted to talk a little bit about real estate. Now, I am not much involved into the real estate market. I do sell building supplies for a living, but that's about as close as I get. Now, I did try buying a house back in 2007, and after losing my job and going underwater on the house and just pretty much not being able to make it after many, many, many years of making payments, I lost the house. Like, I didn't go bankrupt, but I just basically, the house foreclosed on me and I moved out. I just left and I moved into a family home. And it was a real bummer. Like, it left me incredibly in debt, like in credit card debts, and I had medical debts going on by that point, and just all kinds of stuff. And it was just a really bad situation. And, my depression level really was pretty high right about then. And, the thought of owning a home at that point was just so far gone. Like, I didn't even think that I would ever buy a house. Like, trying to deal with this foreclosure, thinking about my credit being ruined, not even knowing how it was that I was going to get out of debt or whether or not I would ever be able to buy a house. And so I just kind of wrote it off like, you're not getting one. And of course, things change as time goes on, and we're out of debt now. Like, there's no debts. And I would really like to buy a house. I have a 6-year-old and a 13-year-old, and we live in town, which is nice, and we live in a nice house. It's a big house. We rent it. But we really don't have a yard. And I used to have a hobby farm. I used to raise chickens, and we had big gardens, and it was nice living out in the country. And it has been convenient living in town. And I was, able to make good use of being here, as far as getting out of debt and building up a bit of a savings and stuff. YouTube has helped me out immensely. Having this YouTube channel has changed everything for me. But now I look at buying a house. I feel like, and I don't want to say that I've been waiting, but I feel like I'm waiting for the housing market to drop in order to get in, to want to jump in and try and get my piece. And as time goes on, and I'm watching these houses get more and more and more expensive, and I'm thinking, man, if you don't do it at some point, you're going to just miss out on your opportunity altogether. Even if the housing market drops at some point, you're going to be, how long are you going to wait? I mean, are you ever going to enjoy it? Every year that passes is another year you don't get it. You don't have it. So it's really difficult for me to try and say, okay, at the height of the housing market, go out there and look for a house to buy. Not knowing how far out, in 6 months, are we going to see a downturn in the housing market? Is it going to take 6 years? What if it never turns? What if the inflation does kick in and it just causes the asset prices to just continue on upward without ever pulling back? And I think, am I really just going to wait my entire life and never do it? So today I was thinking about it. I'm looking at houses, and there's a particular area that I want to live in. And there's literally 12 houses for sale out there. Very expensive fixer-uppers or very expensive nice houses. Very expensive. And I thought, you're going to go and you're going to buy one of those very expensive homes. It's going to take you right to the limit of what you can do. And just like everything else I've ever done, every stock I've ever purchased, anything I've ever invested in, it's going to churn. And you're going to have to take a hit on that. And it just tears me up to think that that's what's going to happen. And that here I am pursuing, it's just something like that's going to happen, and yet you're going to go and attempt to do it. you're gonna go and try and buy this house. And so I got to thinking about it. I was just like, man, I wish there was just a way to hedge it. And then I thought, there is. There's stock, there's ETFs that will short the real estate market. And I thought to myself, well, what if you bought into a bunch of that ETF, into those real estate short ETFs? So you had a really big chunk of that. Then, if you bought that super expensive home and things did churn and you go underwater on that, those ETFs, those short positions that you have purchased, should do pretty dang well. And you may be able to offset the downturn on the real estate prices by purchasing the real estate shorts as kind of like an insurance policy. I thought about that and I think, man, that's actually not a bad idea. Really just a few $1,000s into some of these real estate shorts that, do 3 times what the housing market does. Well, if there's a huge drop in housing, those ETFs could do quite well. And having, a few $1,000s at it right now, putting a few $1,000s at them really isn't a bad play if you're going to buy into some really expensive housing. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an investor. Don't take this as investment advice. It's just me thinking of an idea that I could do to feel a little bit more comfortable about going out there and buying very expensive real estate. Because I'm in an area where even if it starts to drop and it drops, 10, 20%, which would be pretty significant if you think about it, it's still going to be very expensive. I mean, my area is certainly not a place to to have like an average job and then try and, live here, try and buy a house. I mean, if you're not already established in this area, it's going to be a very difficult one. And like me, where you had screwed up and, you're basically starting from scratch at 40 years old, it's very difficult. I mean, very difficult to try and do it. So, I don't know. We're going to find out a little bit more come into the summer. I am already seeing an idea that we're going to have a very unusual middle of summer building season. I have a feeling that we're going to see a price drop in building materials, both very temporary on the short term, which we did a video talking about that yesterday, but I have a feeling that we're going to see a significant one come the middle of summer. Of course, the closer we get to it, the more likely, that scenario will play out. And, depending on what circumstances change between now and then, who knows what will happen. But anyway, I'd like to get you guys' thoughts on that. To be able to hedge an expensive mortgage out there on an expensive house or something, to be able to hedge that by buying into some real estate short positions, some ETF real estate short positions. And that way, if the housing market crashes, you just cash in the ETFs and put it towards the principal of the house and bring it back above water again. I don't know. I think it's a pretty good idea myself. But you guys let me know. Uneducated Economist.